the agenda.
Okay, good evening. It's 6:01 and we're going to get started. We do have a quorum, which, you know, we usually have a 7-person board. So this is the smallest we've ever had in a meeting since I've been here for years. But I'd like to welcome all of you to our meeting this evening. Today is Monday, May 23rd, and this is the Saugatuck Township Blue Star Highway Planning Commission meeting. It's not really the Blue Star meeting, it's Saugatuck Township Planning Commission meeting. Do you have agendas? Were they back there? Okay, great, thank you. So the first thing I would just like to do is roll call, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. So Butler, Brown, here. Helmrich is not here. Eiley is not here. Israel's here. Webster here. Worth is not here. Okay. Thank you. We do have a quorum. Would you like to join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? You're welcome to. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next thing on our agenda this evening is the approval of our agenda. So are there any additions or corrections to the agenda this evening from any of commissioners? Anything?
Move to approve the agenda as submitted.
I have an addition.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, just that I would like to, when we have the staff update from Lene, include the annual report that she prepared, and she does that annually. And I do believe it's here. I did send it, I gave it to you, I copied it, so you do have it on your desk. Oh, no, you don't, I'm sorry.
We'll
Here.
pass it out later.
Okay, we'll pass it out later. Sound like it is. And then also you have a copy of the RFP draft that you had in your packet, and now we have a proposal. So I don't think we'll go through the proposal this evening, but Lene may talk about it just a little bit, okay, for the ordinance draft. And that's it. That's all I wanted to say. And then on item B, it says review natural review overlay. That should be review natural river overlay.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Now you may make your motion.
Okay, move to approve the agenda as with the additions mentioned.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from 3/28/22. We did not meet last month.
Move to approve.
I have some corrections.
I do too.
All right.
So nobody supported that, just so you know. Okay. Is there any corrections on page 1? No. Are there any questions, or are there any corrections on page 2? I have one under grocery store, a store whose principal function is the sale of primary. It's just the word is. It's just a typo. Okay. Any corrections on page 3?
One, and I want to make sure that I understand this. It's about 3/4 of the way down the page, and the sentence starts with MDOT does not allow discharge to MDOT.
I have a question mark there too, yes.
Is that to say MDOT does not allow discharge to streets?
I didn't know. MDOT is not allowed
It's about
discharge
3/4 of the way down.
runoff to be, I don't
would
know.
think that's likely what
That means, so
Yeah.
that instead of the second MDOT, say
runoff.
street to streets.
to their street or their facilities.
Okay,
Okay, the sentence doesn't make sense, but That makes more sense. Does that sound right?
Mhm.
And you'd say, and runoff to be maintained as onset retention is the best option. Any more on that? I have, 2 lines under. Mr. Raleigh noted they are working with a fire consultant. I think that this is something can be Xed out and say to meet the requirements of Saugatuck Fire Department. And then second to the last line on that page, it should be including, where it says including, add the word that from the neighbor parcel. And landscaping plan minimize tree removal period. They are exploring on the last line. I mean, they're kind of picky, but Jennifer, you did a great job with the minutes.
Yep.
Page 4.
Yes, in the third line, we have 2 negatives. So not much additional was, I think the second not is not supposed to be there.
Right, the second not. Thank you.
And then if you go down to the very bottom, third line up, Mr. Dvorsky stated, there's a dot in there, and I'm not sure if I understand exactly what we're saying here. They, maybe it's they do not, maybe it's what should be a they.
I
do not?
added they
Okay,
are not at this
Yeah.
time, as they work with a third party vendor for signs.
yeah, so I
Does
think
that
you
make
said that,
sense,
a
Jennifer?
they instead of a the, okay.
And are not, okay. And then, about 10 lines up from there, it says Butler feels our stores are convenient. Butler feels the stores are convenient. Should be convenience too. Convenient, it's fine, but yes, the stores are. Okay. Page 5.
1,
Okay.
okay, the second paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 lines down. It starts with stated that some minor trees, I think that 4 is not supposed to be there. Greater than 6 inches in diameter. I don't think that.
Oh, yeah.
FOR is supposed to
Get
be
rid of
there.
it. Yeah, okay. And then if you just go down farther, about almost to the 10th line from the bottom, there's just, they are concerned they may not be able, it just says be able, we have to insert a B, a letter B. Any other comments on page 5? Page 6. Page 7.
Yes, I think the word, in the third sentence, it starts with seed, towards the end of that sentence, seeding of the basins will, I think it's supposed to be a B in there,
Right, B.
shall be beach grass.
Oh,
I think that it needs to be,
oh, will be, the word be,
yes,
beach grass.
yes.
Tenth line. We proposed tying 3 buildings with an S into 1 septic and 1 drain field. Or proposed septic tying 3 buildings with an S into 1 septic and 1 drain field.
So what are you changing it to?
Yes.
Just
Oh, just adding an S after building? Okay, 3 buildings, okay.
Then the following sentence, 1 is in the critical zones.
What is not, okay. Anything else on page 7? Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. And page 11.
Hopefully, minutes as amended.
So moved. Is there support? By Webster, supported by Brown. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, for doing the minutes. I'll still remind us that no one on this board volunteered to do the minutes.
I'll sign it.
It's a big word, it's a big job.
It's a big job. We're very happy that you did it. Don't need to be picky. Tonight we have a lot of people in the audience, and we have two new business issues that are on number 6, but number 5 is public comment. And so if you're here to speak publicly about anything, you're welcome to come up to the podium now. Because neither one of these actually, but if you're here to represent, okay, the site plan review for that Lakeshore property, you might want to wait till we get to that portion of it, okay, which is coming up. But Mr. and Mrs. West, if you would like to speak now for public comment, it's appropriate to speak now. Okay, and then you can stay seated when we talk about the project if we have any other questions for you. And look, we can bring that to you.
No, that's fine. I can take it over there. It just takes me a minute to get organized.
We're happy to do that.
As we all do.
All of us, yeah.
The first thing we ask when you're going to speak is that you just state your name and address for us.
All right. Excuse me. My name is Doug West. My wife Deborah is here with me tonight as well. We are owners of the property at 2879 Lakeshore Road, which is known as West. It's immediately to the south and co-terminus with the boundaries of the lot line for the Lakeshore Resort, owned by somebody in the Locus family. I'm not sure owns the property. Anyway,
Madam Chair, could the mic be used? We can't hear back.
is there a mic on?
There is no mic?
There's no mic on there.
Oh, I could talk into this piece of pipe.
Yeah, we couldn't hear back.
Jennifer's gonna look at this a minute.
I might need your help.
And that, is it on? I don't think any of these are on. Hello?
Your people online probably aren't getting it either.
It might have been going through the computer.
Here, I can.
Say something.
One of them not from turned on and bottom.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Thank you.
So you get to
Thank you,
start
Daniel.
over.
And somebody raised it.
Thank you.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me now?
No, not yet.
No.
Yeah, you kind of have to be really.
You just
close.
hold it right up by your mouth.
Okay. Testing 1, 2, 3. That works.
Can you hear them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh.
he's-
And you can turn a little bit more towards the audience so they hear you too, because we can hear you.
Hello, am I
Yes.
there? Oh, yes. Okay, I'll start over again. Hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully with all this, I've got something valuable to say. My name is Doug West and my wife Deborah is here with me tonight as well. We own the property known as 2879 Lakeshore Drive, the West Cliff. whose boundary on the north side of our property is coterminous with the boundary of the resort, Lakeshore Resort owned by the Malakas family immediately next door to us. My father bought the land in '79 and built the current residence on that property, and we modified the facility in 2016 to add 3,500 or so square footage of living space. The prospect of owning, buying, building a home or a vacation property adjacent to a hotel is not widely viewed as a good idea, only because of the traffic patterns you would expect a hotel, motel, camping sites, whatever, to generate, and the noise that might be attendant upon that. But we are where we are, and I must say that over the years we have been there, we've had absolutely no difficulties of any sort, the kind you would normally associate with living next door to a hotel. This problem of valuation was brought to my attention in 2018 when I was refinancing my mortgage and had the house appraised, and the appraiser said, "Now, Mr. West, I know you're a little disappointed with those numbers, but you have to understand that you're next door to a hotel, and that's worth $250,000 value on your house." So that's lovely to know that. Thank you. And I suggested he should have been here last year when we had, in addition to water at our bottom of our hill, we actually had beach. He said, "Yes, that's 200,000 because you could have advertised a house as waterfront as opposed to beachfront, or beachfront as opposed to waterfront." In any event, the Malakas decided they'd like to expand the property within the confines of the land they already own. Came to us a year ago and showed us plans and asked for our input, and were genuinely concerned and serious about taking that input, made notes, made changes. We came back this spring and we're looking at new drawings that I'm sure you'll see tonight that accommodate a number of our concerns, including setbacks at unusually significant distances compared to what's in the code. So bottom line, I wanted to let everyone know that as the property most likely to be impacted by the changes on their property, we are 100% in support of the way they're doing it, because they've always acted responsibly and appear to be doing so here again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. West. Is there anyone else in row one that would like to address the board?
And then you. On the river stuff too, on anything on our agenda.
On anything on the agenda, yes, but I was just gonna wait till a second. Row two.
I just got rid of my cane, so.
Can you pull the microphone down to your level, please?
How about if I just hold it? Perfect.
That's good.
Is that
Hold
good?
it very close, yes.
Okay.
And your name and address.
My name is Bobby Gaunt, and I live at 341 Main Street in Saugatuck. Good evening. As a City of Saugatuck Planning Commissioner and the lead for the Planning Commission of the development of the forthcoming Tri-Community Plan, I'm asking both the city and the township, two jurisdictions of the Tri-Community, to establish a natural river overlay district in the historic Kalamazoo River mouth neighborhoods. Since the natural river overlay district is already included in the township's code of ordinances, it seems it would be relatively simple, and I know those are famous last words, as well as consistent, certainly, to extend the district to include the river mouth area. I encourage the township to follow the suggestion outlined in the 2016 Tri-Community Master Plan, which states, and I quote, "Protection mechanisms like the natural river designation should be recognized for the ancillary benefits they bring to the community," and that's on page 8-26. The city of Saugatuck owns and manages dedicated natural areas with about 16,000 front feet in the historic Kalamazoo River mouth neighborhoods. Not all of the properties in this area, however, are protected as natural areas. And it is for that reason that I'll be asking the city of Saugatuck to mirror the township's natural river overlay district and apply that district to the historic Kalamazoo River mouth neighborhoods. I believe the extension of the natural river overlay district here in the township and the natural river overlay application in the city is vital to our community's tourist-based economy, quality of life, history, and aesthetics, and is consistent with the 2016 Tri-Community Plan. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening and also for your leadership in this area. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Is there anyone else in row 2, please? Don't hit your head.
Anyway,
I know,
that's all I need.
sorry.
Hi, everybody.
Hi,
Roy
Roy,
McElwain.
please. Yep, state your name and address.
Roy McElwain, 3466 Riverside Drive, Township. I know that by heart. A very brief letter from myself and my wife. As property owners along Riverside Drive and Dugout Road, we are writing once again to encourage the Township Planning Commission and Township Board to quickly extend the Natural River Overlay District to include the historic Kalamazoo River North neighborhoods. As we learned the hard way from the actions of Chad and Jenny Van Horn, mature forests can quickly be cut, the land excavated, and the hydrology altered. Once the landscape is altered, it's nearly impossible to quickly restore it. It is vital that our local government protect our invaluable ecological, historical, and cultural values with more strict zoning. We are requesting, again, the Planning Commission and Board take swift and decisive action to extend the Natural River Overlay District to include the historic Kalamazoo River neighborhoods. Thank you, and Carol McElwain. And I have a copy I'd like to turn in for the record, and just an add-on. 2 neighbors who were not able to attend tonight or to Zoom asked me to add their names to the letter that I just read. Sandra and Travis Randolph, 3442 Riverside, and Scott and Rebecca Wieringer on Dugout Road.
Thank you, Brian. Could you give it to me? All right, one name. Renee's willing to do it.
Sure.
I know.
There you are, Becky.
Thank you. I'll make sure it's in the record. Thank you. Anyone else in row 2? Row 3.
Just a quick question, Becky, am I actually presenting as a representative from the Rural Character Committee, the review of the Natural River Overlay?
Yes,
If I'm presenting them, then I won't speak as a public, I'll just speak then.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Row 4.
Sure. I'll make it real quick. Scott Boscraft on behalf of North Shores. Had sent a couple letters in today. I trust that everybody had received those. Had an opportunity to review them. I think the only thing that I really have to add to that is I don't see in any shape or form how you couldn't see this proposed river overlay district to be anything but single out the North Shore property. The gentleman that just spoke, along with the people that he represented that are neighbors, have their houses built. They would be non-conforming lots. If they burned down or they fell in the water or if a tornado came through, they could rebuild. Same spot, same place. They are non-conforming. The only place that this river overlay that would apply that would be different would be the property that North Shore owns. And I think I sent you enough information to give you at least our objective opinion on what this looks like. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay,
Couple
this,
online.
oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, on Zoom, Nick Wallace. You can go ahead. There you go.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
And-
Nick.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicholas Wallace, and my address is 3524 North Dugout Road, and I've spent the last 22 years of my life visiting a family cottage along the Kalamazoo River. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of myself, my mother, grandmother, and uncle who have all grown up visiting the same cottage most of their lives. Our cottage sits between Pine Trail Camp and Hawk's Nest on Dugout Road. And as adjacent property owners to the undeveloped land surrounding Dugout Road, we are fearful of this incredibly unique, necessary, and truly remarkable habitat possibly being altered or clear-cut in the future due to the trends we have witnessed in the surrounding area over recent years. Spending most summers walking and studying the ecology that makes this area special has taught me that Dugout Road possesses a great diversity of plant and animal species, and the presence of the clear cutting above Dugout Road is already a significant and short-sighted loss to the overall health of the surrounding habitat. We cannot afford to risk losing more. I've aged personally dozens of trees along Dugout Road and in the Rivermouth neighborhood, and the presence of some beech, hemlock, white pine, sugar maple, and oaks of several types are all pushing between 100 and 200 years old, suggests that these are pioneer organisms, trees that were young or had just germinated between mid to end 19th century when the surrounding land was being heavily logged. We cannot allow some of our most mature forests to be at risk, especially forests on land that was once heavily pressured and is now recovering. As property owners, we are writing once again to encourage the Township Planning Commission and the Township Board to quickly extend the Natural River Overlay District to include the historic Kalamazoo Rivermouth neighborhoods. Extending the overlay district would protect Dugout Road from being clear cut, and it would protect diverse habitats of our neighborhood waterfronts from becoming monoculture lawns not suitable for the wildlife integral to this area's biological health. The presence of active biology and ecological activity should always be preferred over its absence. Thank you for your time, and I hope you truly consider and understand the fundamental importance of this topic and the gravity of this situation due to what has already been allowed in this neighborhood. Thank you all.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Matthew, if you'd like to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Bonjour, Drayak Inwa, Matthew Bustler, Indigenous Bodwe Wadmi and Dow. My name is Matthew Bustler. I'm the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi Indians. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Pokagon Band in support of the proposal to extend the Natural River Overlay District to include the Kalamazoo Rivermouth area. The cultural and historic values found in the KRMA are of vital importance to the Pokagon Band. As the keeper of the National Register of Historic Places wrote in her September 2020 letter of determination of eligibility, what the Matchi-Benashiwish Band of Potawatomi Indians Tribal Historic Preservation Officer referred to in her 11/2019 letter as the distinct historical and contemporary cultural significance of the mouth of the river is manifest in the tribe's ethnogenesis, language, rituals, handicrafts, foodways, traditions, social structure, governance, place names, and ongoing cultural identity. The Kalamazoo River mouth area and areas adjacent represent areas that are crucially important to the Pokagon Band because of our ancestral ties to the region and our desire to protect our homelands, including the Kalamazoo River mouth area, for the next 7 generations. The historic and current functions of the KRMA traditional cultural property include, without limitation, seasonal village sites, camps, sites for offerings, prayer and ceremony, culture and language, revitalization, hunting, fishing, trapping, harvesting, inter and intra-tribal group gatherings, spiritual and mental health associations, burials and graves, and much more. The Kalamazoo Rivermouth area TCP contains multiple significant cultural resources that are important to local indigenous communities, including the Potawatomi, and contribute to the significance of the mouth of the Kalamazoo River. This property includes Nama, which is a lake sturgeon, or Manolman, which is wild rice, black and other ash trees, birch, maple, reeds, cattails, and other medicinal plants. There are many animals that are culturally significant elements that are known and understood through tribal stories, oral histories, clan relationships, and ongoing cultural practices. The keeper of the register found the Kalamazoo Rivermouth overwhelmingly meets the criteria as a traditional cultural property for inclusion on the National Register of Historic Places. The extension of the township's Natural River Overlay District to include the Kalamazoo Rivermouth area will help protect our cultural values. The extension of the township's Natural River Overlay District to include the Kalamazoo Rivermouth area will honor and help protect our history. An excerpt from the 2019 Ethnographic Traditional Cultural Property Study of the mouth of the Kalamazoo River detailing the historic significance is as follows. Additional names associated with the mouth of the Kalamazoo River include Leopold Pokagans, which is the Pokagon band's namesake. His Potawatomi name, Sakiwanik, which means man of the outlet of the river, was eventually corrupted to Saugatuck. This is greatly significant to the Potawatomi tribes affiliated with Southwest Michigan, who directly connect this prominent leader and historical figure to the mouth of the Kalamazoo River. Historically, the area around the Kalamazoo River was where the Odawa, Bodwawadmi, and Ojibwe members of the Three Fires Confederacy had established their villages. The Pokagon Band appreciates Saugatuck Township, recognizing the cultural and historical values of the Kalamazoo River mouth area to the Potawatomi. We strongly encourage the Planning Commission and the Township Board to extend the Natural River Overlay District to include the Kalamazoo River mouth to protect these values. I greatly appreciate this opportunity to comment. Ahau, and Chummy Gwetch, great thanks to you and your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to say anything this evening? Okay, at this time, I would like to.
What about John W.? Is that-
Yes, can you hear
Oh,
me?
John,
We can.
sorry.
I would just like to briefly speak in support of encouraging the Township Planning Commission and the Township Board to extend the Natural River Overlay District to include the historic Kalamazoo River mouth neighborhoods. I think it's important that we do this and preserve what we have in this area, and I would just encourage the Township and the Board and the Planning Commission to act on that. That's briefly what I want to say. I'm John Williams. I live at 3464 Riverside Drive. Forgot to say my address. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Is there anyone else? Oh, not seeing it. At this time, I would like to close public comments. Moving on to item number 6 is new business. The first thing on our agenda, I'd like to remind everyone up here too that we are not allowed to have cell phones in use while we're in a meeting, just so we know that.
Once where dugout road was.
I know, we can ask Lene. But I just want to remind you that we can't do that. New business, site plan review for Lakeshore Resort expansion at 2885 Lakeshore Drive, Benville, Michigan, parcel 20-020-033-00. This property is zoned R3. The applicant is with us this evening. His name is Andrew Malakas, and I believe he's here with his agent from Naderveld. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, Lene, would you like to introduce the project, and then we turn it over to you to provide us with more information, and at that time, we may have questions for you. Okay.
Sure. Thank you. I just want to say that I've had the opportunity to visit the site, and I appreciate the opportunity to have a tour from both Andrew and his father, Joe. And we also had this application before the Zoning Board of Appeals back in 2021. The Malakases are operating a legal non-conforming use in the R3 district, a motel resort, which is not a permitted use. And so the zoning board had to review whether the expansion of this use met our ordinance standards. At that time, the applicant provided a concept plan that included 4 building sites. It included circulation, buffers, landscape areas, as well as some footprint calculations for the buildings. Each of the 4 buildings have 2 units in each building for a total of 8 units. I did call out in the report that I felt that there were some deviations from the original concept plan and what was submitted in the site plan. One of the conditions that the Zoning Board of Appeals required was that this project would come before the Planning Commission for site plan review. So that's why it's here for you today. I do recognize that there have been conversations and clarifications between the applicant and our office. And I've sent the planning commission updated materials that we got on Friday. And I appreciate that clarification. I think that there was some confusion even between myself, between the applicant and what was on some of the drawings. The zoning board of appeals did approve 7,000 square feet of footprint on those plans. Now, those plans did designate square footages for each of the buildings, and those square footages are a little bit different, but yet when totaled, they would be under that 7,000 square feet. I do think, though, that it's important to know that there are differences. And that's part of the role that I play, is to help provide that continuity between what was presented at the zoning board of appeals and what is now before the planning commission. As you know, variances, like the one that they requested in 2021 was a public hearing. Property owners within 300 feet were noticed. And so personally and ethically, I do believe that we have, a responsibility to honor that process and what was presented. I also recognize that there are concept plans, and you don't spend a lot of money and time on engineering and approvals until you know that generally the use would be permitted. I do think, though, that it is worth, hearing from the applicant and getting some additional clarification. The concept plan that was in your packet, and Jennifer, you can pull it up, includes 3, I forget the exact name, but kind of like the woodland cottages. They're together, they're in a cul-de-sac layout. Those cottages in the plan with the ZBA were 1,200 square feet of footprint. And the proposed plan, they're 1,300 square feet. Minor change, but it's 300 square feet of additional area. Oh, do you have the ZBA plan, Gretchen?
Oh, I do.
The other cottage, which is near the lakeshore cottage, on the ZBA plan, that is 1,500 square feet. The site plan that we were shown as part of this project shows that as 2,600 square feet. So there is a difference there. Granted, when totaled, all of this is still under the 7,000, but I do think it's important to notice and recognize that there are those changes. The other change is that the ZBA plan, the parking, it was a change between the two. So you'll see in that concept plan, the gray is the circulation. It's just I believe it was shown as a 16-foot access route behind the Lakeshore Resort and connecting to these 2 main kind of pods of development. The proposed plan includes, maybe toggle to the proposed plan. I'm really giving.
The civil plan one?
Yeah, that was fine. Second page.
Second page.
Sure. I could be running that, I guess, maybe in the future. I'll just hop over there, maybe the 3rd page.
So this is page 3.
Okay,
Is that it?
the next page. Okay. Oh, still not a,
One more.
okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, so this is the proposed plan that you can see that they've kind of flushed out the design concept quite a bit. It includes kind of a more significant turnaround where those 3 cottages are to the lower right, as well as it includes a kind of driveway connection out to Lakeshore. So the original concept plan did not include a driveway directly connecting to Lakeshore Drive for that Lakeshore house, right? It stopped at the back of that front building. The concept plan also includes a 9-space parking lot along the entry drive. So I'll just point this out. But this 9-space parking area here, and 2 parking spaces here. And then each one of these buildings, each side has 1 parking space integrated into the building. And then this area includes 4 parking spaces. One of those is for barrier-free designation. So those changes, I needed to point out to you. And also the width of the driveway and access way is now between 12 and 20 feet. And some of that is a requirement of our fire district. And the proposed building D up by the lake includes a covered, screened-in porch deck, which I believe is part of that difference in building footprint, but that's a question that remains. So the zoning ordinance in terms of parking for motel, hotel requires 1 space per unit. So each of those 3 buildings would self-park in that they have an integrated parking space. So that meets our ordinance requirement, and then the building up front requires 2 parking spaces, and the lot that's shown is 4 spaces. And then the remaining 9 space lot, and then those 2 additional paved parking spaces near the pod of 3 are over and above what our ordinance would require for the use being like motel, hotel. So I guess with that, and you can see in my report, I've just raised some concerns. We don't really have a lot of guidance in our ordinance when it comes to, you know, a ZBA concept plan versus the site plan for planning commission review. Again, we recognize that as things are designed and details are worked out and conversations with fire district happen, that there are certain requirements that do need to be met. And there are site constraints. So I guess as planning staff, it was important for me to lay that out for you and let you recognize and maybe weigh in on whether, you know, this concept, the site plan before you is still in keeping with the original concept. It was great to hear from the neighbors, especially because they're the ones most impacted by this driveway, that there isn't a concern. There is still a buffer area between the driveway and the adjacent property. The buffer is a do not disturb area. And so, you know, that remains. I guess.
Can you just explain what the driveway consists of? What type of drive that proposed new drive is? Or are you not sure?
Let me pull that up. I mean, these plans are quite small, but I believe that that's a gravel drive with grass, a center grass strip. So more like a 2-track, but I'd like to hear that from the applicant because the shading is very difficult to decipher on these plans. I did speak with the fire district, and the applicant, has a incomplete submittal to the planning department for a private road that connects from Blue Star Highway to this property. It includes part of what's labeled as the existing 2-track at the north. And I asked the fire district, well, if that private road were to be developed, would that meet the fire district's request for the second point of egress and ingress? And they suggested that it would be uncommon for them to respond to a call on Lakeshore Drive and use a private road from Blue Star, that it wouldn't be the most, I guess, intuitive, direct route. They said that if this driveway was not installed for this lakefront home, that all of the drives within the current development would have to be widened to 20 feet. So it poses some site constraints for their existing development. The proposed driveway is a 20-foot wide gravel access drive that meets the requirement for emergency access. It's partially covered by turf. And then there's a proposed gap between that 9-space parking and this two-track gravel drive. But that would be turf over fire access drive. So plant over it. So there wouldn't be a connection, a paved connection from the driveway for the lakefront unit and the 3 units at the rear. It would just hold the weight of the fire truck.
Okay.
I did note a few other things in my report, just about the wetland delineation. I know that the engineer replied that there were no wetlands. We just put this caveat in there because the site is within 500 feet of Lake Michigan. If there would be, there may or may not be a need for an eagle permit, but we want to see verification one way or the other. The township engineer reviewed the site plan and provided some comments. The buffering was something that I was concerned about between the 2 plans. So I think that's worth discussing. The lighting is downward facing, it's modest and pedestrian scale, it meets the requirements of our ordinance. There would be no outdoor storage. And we didn't have many other issues, it was mostly that we wanted to see kind of updated floor plans. Some of them were mislabeled and some of them we weren't provided renderings for each floor in the building, so it was very unclear, especially where that parking was integrated. We didn't have a floor plan for that. We don't see elevation showing the height. So I just want to verify that the floors and the height meet our ordinance. I did include a note that these wouldn't be short-term rentals separate from the resort. That was very clear in the minutes, and that's what the intent of number 1 is, that condition that these wouldn't be separate short-term rental units, that they're part of the Lakeshore Resort.
And that was very clear in the ZBA minutes.
That was.
Okay, that's what I
And
wanna make sure we understand.
it was very clear, it may not have been in the ZBA minutes, but in the applicant's description of the project.
Okay,
It wasn't in the minutes.
Okay, and it's in the applicant's description of the
Okay.
project. So the parking, again, I think that's something that, you know, they're only required 1 space per unit. I recognize that this might be, you know, unique types of uses where you might have people coming from different parts of the state, you know, 2, you know, sisters that live in different locations and they have 2 cars, but our ordinance only requires 1 per unit. The tree protection was something that I thought would be worth discussing. I know that the applicant, when I went out to visit, they're very aware of the older trees and want to maintain some of the larger trees that are on site. Now with the driveway going in, you know, some of that tree buffer area would be disturbed and removed. So that was just something I thought was important to note. So those were the main comments that I had.
would you like to come up and speak to the project, please?
Sure.
You can introduce yourself.
Yeah, Mike Baker with Naderbeld. I'm the engineer, civil engineer on the project. 347 Hoover Boulevard, Holland. Thanks, Lene. That was a great summary of kind of where we're at with the process of looking for site plan approval. Just to reiterate a couple of things, yeah, we did go to the ZBA with the conceptual plan, and I think a lot of the discussion is comparing the conceptual plan with the current site plan that's proposed, and whether they're close enough to each other. We think they are substantially the same, but I guess that's what we need to talk through. So the conceptual plan did show and was labeled as approximate footprints and approximate building areas, because at that point in the design, it's very much conceptual and it hasn't been engineered and reviewed and gone through that whole process. So we were sensitive to that with the conceptual plan to try to have some flexibility there. So after that, we basically got that approval and moved forward with the beginning of the specific site plan design, and working through with the fire district and also the engineers in terms of working through drainage and health department. And there's just a lot of different aspects. The plan has evolved to the point that it is now, but we still assert that it's very much the same. So some of the things that were brought up by Lene, I'd like to address. The first one being the floor areas, and I think some of the confusion comes in here because of the terminology. Floor area is like a architectural term of like the usable living space inside the structure. We as civil engineers use footprint to kind of describe just like the overall boundary. So the footprints here are very close to the footprints on the conceptual plan. I've created some confusion by putting floor area in the general notes, and I think that was in the application. But if you go if you go with the footprints of the outer walls of the building, we're within like 20 square feet of what was proposed. The front building, the Lakeview building, is actually a little smaller of a footprint than what we showed with our conceptual rectangle, and the ones in the back are slightly a little bit bigger.
Which the deck or without the deck?
Footprint, we calculate all without the deck because we don't really look at that as living space. So it's just the exterior walls of the building. So the deck would be additional. In terms of the circulation and the roadways, so the fire code requires a 20-foot wide fire lane for anything that has to be a fire lane. And we need to have a fire lane go to within 150 feet of any of the new buildings. So after working through that, the most efficient and the best emergency access was to create the new fire lane or the new connection to Lakeshore Drive. And the applicant, being sensitive to that and also wanting to keep the residential character of the development, is proposing that we cover a good portion of the fire lane with turf. And we've worked through with the fire district and they're in agreement to that concept. So basically what we'll have is the actual gravel will be a little bit wider that the fire trucks can go on. But the turf will cover some of that. So it'll kind of narrow it up and make it look more residential. So that's what's happening in the front with the 2-track. Because of the grass growing over the gravel there. And then we do have to have the turnaround for the fire truck. So there's a hammerhead by the forest view buildings in the back. And that's why you kind of see some extra roadways back there. Now, again, when the concept plan was drawn, we didn't have the architectural buildings and we didn't have all the parking figured out with that. So some of the access to get to the parking spaces in the buildings and stuff had to be added afterwards. So that's why it's a little different.
Would you like your plans up on that board
I can put those up there.
or the public
Yep.
at least, even because we have them, but. But I don't know if that would be helpful for people to see. Or us. Yeah, I think we want to see that too.
Where's the best spot to go over here?
Yeah, I think
I don't know
so.
how to get everybody to
Well, that
this.
makes the parking better.
Yeah, we
Oh, we're
did
getting-
this.
No, seriously.
We did this plan to kind of show how little is really gravel here. Once you bring the turf in to kind of make it look narrower. And they do have a section of the fire lane here that actually is only for emergency access. So only cars that are staying in this, or only people that are staying in this front Lakeview building would be using this access up here. So just these 2 units. Everybody else is gonna access through the existing resort to go to the back units over there.
Did you eliminate the, I think you call it the hammerhead for the?
No, the hammerhead is actually back here.
Oh, so they can go,
Yep,
okay.
so the emergency access, the fire truck would come in here, go across the turf, and then they would turn around and leave that way. And that actually was the more direct route than having them come around through here and have to kind of circle around to get back there. And so that's why that was set up that way. In terms of parking, the ordinance requirement is 1 space per unit. These,
Make some clarification on that. From what I can see from the ordinance, it's for a motel, correct? It's 1 space
sorry, per bed,
for each sleeping
Yeah.
room,
right, you're right.
right?
I
So,
misspoke, so these units up here are 1-bedroom units.
yes,
So each one of these needs 1 space.
correct.
And
So
then
that's
these are
6.
2-bedroom
Correct.
units, so these need 2, so I think the total is 12 for that part of the ordinance. Cause this would be,
Right,
4 plus,
Like 10.
yeah, you're right, 10. So we are showing additional because, this being kind of like dwellings, we did provide 2 per unit, more like a residential dwelling. And then we have, I think, 5 extra beyond that for like visitors. I think that the applicant can maybe speak to that. They may have some flexibility on the parking
I'm
space.
confused. Why do we think we need 10? Unless I'm looking at the wrong plan, is your 1 per sleeping room? So from what I can see from the lake shore,
that's 2 bedrooms in each side. Each unit, there's 2 units, each unit has 2 bedrooms, that's 4. 1, 2,
right, so
4.
why do you think 10?
Well, we're talking about the other 3.
Oh, the total.
10
you're talking
total,
about the
yeah, 10.
total. Okay, I was just
Sorry.
concentrating on, we already got that one done. Okay, I got it now. All
Well, we
right.
talk in a different.
Yes,
way. No.
We talk
We
different.
skip over
Okay,
stuff,
I'm
sorry.
okay now. I'm right.
Go
So
back to my notes.
minimum 10, or do we say maximum 10, I guess is part of the question if we're talking about excess
Well,
parking.
I would look at it more in regards to if I understand the forest view, each bungalow has parking underneath.
Yes,
So those are taken care of.
1 garage.
It's just the question is this top one, this Lakeview would need 4. So those 4 spaces, so, when we think about 10, it's like, okay, but
6 are bad.
the forest view has already been taken care of. It's just really that, do we need those 9 spaces that you show right there? And I don't think you do.
That's the question.
No, because you've already gave me enough parking
For the ordinance,
for
yeah,
the ordinance.
I
So
guess I
then
would-
therefore we remove those those 9 spaces.
Yeah, after I'm done presenting, I guess I'll give the applicant a chance to,
Okay,
I mean, they
okay.
know better how their
Okay,
hotel functions and how many cars they kind of generate typically.
okay.
Well, and I really have one point to that, like, when my daughter was married, they stayed out there, not in this resort, but somewhere, and so several of us went to see the family there. So, I mean, at times, you wanna go visit the people that are staying there,
I think that,
you don't need to park there, where are they gonna park?
I would hold that discussion for later.
Okay. I'm just suggesting.
That's the type of discussion, I guess, how many visitor
Yes.
spaces are appropriate
Right,
beyond what the ordinance minimum. So we talked about parking, we talked about the circulation and the drives and the width of the drives. We are showing a buffer that is a combination of some existing trees and also the planted landscape buffer along the property line.
and how wide is that buffer?
The buffer itself is 15 feet, I believe, and the actual to the edge of like where the gravel begins is 19 feet from the property line. And they've aggressively, planted that, and there's also a screen fence on the property line. I believe that's a 6-foot tall fence, is it? Yeah.
Or taller.
Yeah, so we're proposing a 6-foot opaque screen fence on the property line and then plantings. The intent is to maintain as much of the existing trees in there that they can. Of course, where the drive comes in, the building sites need to be graded, but we kind of show removing the trees out to the perimeter, but I know their intent is to select, certain ones that they want to save, and if they land in the right spot, then they want to save other ones. What's shown there. So that's the buffer. The wetlands, we do have a wetland consultant, Bar Environmental, and Matt McGregor at Bar, who has visited the site and confirmed that there's no regulated wetlands in this development area that need to be permitted for. It's also not designated critical dune or high-risk erosion, so there's no eagle permitting required for that. The only other thing I would mention, I guess, is where we are in the process. We mentioned the township engineers. They have some recommended conditions in their review letter. I don't think we have anything in there that we have a problem with, so we're agreeable to those conditions. Same thing with the fire district. We've been through a couple of reviews with them already, and I think they have a clear understanding of what's proposed, and they're agreeable to that. The Drain Commission, similarly, we've submitted to the Drain Office, and we have a review letter from them that recommends approval with one condition, which we're fine with. The 2 other approvals that we'll be seeking is a permit from the Road Commission for that new driveway connection to Lake Shore Drive, and also working through with the Health Department for the on-site septic systems and the water service extensions. We've already met with them on site too, and it's just a matter of kind of working through the process, so. I think that's it, other than, if you have any questions.
At this time,
I know, not at this time, not at this time, no. A little later, but.
there anyone that would like to speak to this?
Yeah, I think just a couple other points that might cover that I just want to explain in just a little more detail. One is about the landscaping plan. Oh, Andrew Malakis, 2895 Lakeshore Drive. With the buffering we're showing, as I understand the ordinance, well exceeds what the ordinance requires. I think the ordinance requires 12 trees per 100 feet and a side yard buffer, and we're providing 20. And the size of the trees also well exceed the requirement of the ordinance. And then we've worked with the neighbor. The tree buffering stops about at our building line, and we've agreed that the buffering from that point to the lake would be 4-foot grasses to preserve their view of the lake across our property and ours across theirs to not impede the sight lines of the lake. So that's this area here. And then our berm and grasses will continue along Lakeshore. So the idea is that headlights that may shine for their property would be blocked by those grasses. And by putting the driveway in this location, it's moved our building 42 feet from the property line, which was something at the ZBA, we showed the building at 20 feet from the property line. The fire lane and driveway have moved it to 42 feet, which was appreciated by the neighbor. Just for comparison, if a residential home were to be built on this site, the driveway could be 5 feet from the property line without any buffering and without the fence. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Wests have been supportive of the project, is because of that. And then with regard to parking, that sounds like that's a topic that needs some discussion. We've included some additional spaces for visitors. And I think there's been some confusion also about the parking, because Lene's report said that we needed 2 parking spots per unit, and that the ZBA approved us for a total of 16 or 18? 16. And so we saw that we were coming with just a few extra parking spaces, not 9 extra parking spaces.
Residential are 3 and 2 per.
But it's a motel. So
Yeah,
it's
so
a
it's
residential. It's in a residential district, but this is a operating motel.
Right.
So we have to go to the motel. Which
But
is
the
1
original
per.
CBA approved 16. It's not in the CBA.
I don't know that the ZBA
I didn't see that.
approved
No, it's
any
not.
parking.
Matter of fact, the ZBA didn't really make any conditions in regards to the concept. They just ruled on regards to the ability to expand a non-conforming use. That's all they did. So that's all their minutes show.
Right.
They don't even
But you
bring
did
up the
address the
concept plan in that.
No, they don't.
So it's really confusing.
Yeah, we did not discuss parking at ZBA. I'm referencing Lene's report.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Malakis?
Okay, I do have some questions, and it's gonna probably be easier for me to ask, because, okay, so this space right here, this here, is this a driveway?
It is.
And this is a driveway?
Yep.
So why do I have to have 2 driveways?
Because it's one way. Cars will enter on this one, and then they will exit on this one.
Is it, and the reason for that, excuse me, because of the width, or?
Because of the width here, but also just to handle the traffic pattern, so cars aren't meeting and we're not pushing too many cars through this area past these guest rooms and too many cars here. It kind of defines how cars will travel. And so all the traffic is not right next to these units, and all the traffic being next to those, it forces people to enter and exit. So then that traffic is balanced.
Okay, so Besides these spaces, and I'm assuming these are for guests.
Yes,
How about those two? Guests.
yes.
Guests.
That's not a parking spot. That's just so this car can pull out of.
Okay,
unit three.
all right. Could these spaces be placed other places? For instance, could it be placed in there? In other words, could I take these spaces instead of here? Could they be expanded right into here?
That's gonna require more clearing. This area is already mostly free of trees where this is heavily forested.
Okay,
So we're just trying to limit and.
how about over in here? Could they be
that's a
moved?
fairly That's an incline.
Could they be moved
I
over
think,
here?
Mike.
Yeah, and I think there's a drain field in there. There's an existing drain field
In
area.
here?
In
Yeah.
there,
Yeah,
Okay,
pretty
right there.
steep.
Okay, got it. And why do you think you need? Okay, 9 plus 2, that's 11. Why do we need 11 visitors?
We just kind of picked that number as
Just-
being. what's
How many do you have out
listed
here?
on the plan.
How many do you have out here for visitors in your regular resort?
I'd have to check, but maybe. What would you say?
5 or 6.
5 or 6?
And how many units do you have in there?
31.
Okay, so you have 5 guest spots for this big unit, your big resort, right? Now you're asking for 11 just for here?
Yes.
Okay,
those are.
I'm having a little bit of problem mathematical
More
on
square
that one.
footage.
Yeah, there's significantly more square footage and some of the units are 2-bedroom.
Okay,
Likely.
Okay.
More coverage.
could you do with less?
We could.
Okay, how many less? Well, you got 5 on the other ones.
Yeah.
I'm really
I
struggling with
think
that concept that,
6.
We don't want to park it in the road.
We can only do 30% more than what's required.
so what would that be?
If 10 are required, 30% more would be 13.
13 total.
13 total,
Well, in that area,
including,
in that new
Total.
project.
Total.
right, total including
all those.
for the guests plus,
So there's
Okay.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so 3 more.
okay, so,
These 2 plus 1.
I guess that would
and
have
three
to
here.
work.
okay,
Right here. To minimize excessive adverse aesthetic impacts and excess rates of stormwater runoff, minimum parking space requirement shall not be exceeded by more than 30%.
So can you live with that?
Sure.
Okay. Ken, do you have questions?
So you would.
No, I'm impressed that this whole discussion opened with the most impacted neighbors speaking first. They showed up, this is the one, they're gonna be the most impacted. Hopefully his property values won't plummet any further. But, they're the ones who had the greatest stake and they showed up and spoke first, so.
Can I just say something?
Oh, of course.
They really have thought of things that we never would have thought of to protect us. So, we're really trusting them and it's well-founded trust.
And they've been your neighbors for how long?
40
Since
years.
the property was
Okay.
built in 79.
So we believe you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Got a
credit.
track record there.
Yeah. Jackie?
I was just gonna say, where there are now, I don't know how many, there are 5 parking spots that loop around
In the,
to the left of the bungalows.
here,
Can you just keep 2 of those parking spaces closest to the bungalows, and would you extend that fire lane for the trucks with turf over gravel?
here.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
would we keep
The 2
3,
closest,
2 closest?
then keep the other 2 on the other side?
So,
Or you could keep 3 there.
so you're saying, keep them over here and lose these, and so there's a longer gap? Is that what you mean? Make a longer gap in between?
Yeah, that would be fine, then that road would not need, the reason this is extending is to get access to these parking spots, so if that does not extend, then Yeah, the turf could cover the fire line.
Okay, so if I understand with Jackie, what she just said, the two units, the two parking spaces up here are going to remain as guests, these two, correct?
Yes,
So therefore, if we only do three, then only one of these stay,
that's true.
unless you want to do something here, or two of those, and you gotta lose one up here. Unless we go to four, which we could extend up to four, right? We could go beyond the 30?
It says a map no more than 30%. So
Okay.
30% of 10.
Well, it's 3.33.
3.33. So we could
So we
round
could
up.
go
we
four.
could round
We
it
could
up
go
One of
four.
these is barrier free, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can account
definitely,
for
we
that,
could round
right?
it
Yeah, so one of those could be barrier free, and then you would lose these six.
Mhm.
And then you're extending the turf up to that point.
Right.
Okay, got it.
The thing that-
Sorry, I'm not a mature person.
Yeah.
I got it. Can I ask you in regards to your memo?
Mhm.
Is this second C a D? I just want to make sure I got the square footage. You have an A, B, C, C. Is that the second one a D?
That's a D, yes.
Okay, thank you. I thought so too, but I would just want to make sure.
Up into this memo.
This one. And the bottom is C,
I didn't catch that, but you're right.
and then that's the Lakeview. That's the Lakeview cottage, right?
The D, yes, the D.
D, and the other ones
D is the
are the
Lakeview.
forest view.
Yep,
So if my mathematics is right, it's 5,120 square feet is what they're getting now instead of the 7,000.
It still doesn't
again,
include
there's,
the-
there's,
Deck, but you would have, yes, and
Okay.
that deck wouldn't be, I'm sure it's not over it. What do you think that deck is, square footage wise, on that Lakeview?
Images on-
Yeah, I even with my enhancement classes, I had trouble seeing some of this.
yeah, I think it's roughly 350.
Under,
Where are the dimensions, what by what? I don't. It's on, perhaps. Oh, those
the
are
20, it doesn't show, it's a 28 by,
Which one are you looking at? The
12 by
Lakeview?
20.
is it 12?
Yeah.
Is it 12? I wasn't quite sure if it's 12.
Yes, it's 12 by 28.
More or less, yeah,
Yeah, 12 by 28.
okay.
Okay,
That's not
Probably a little
quite all of
less.
it, because it has some pieces on the ends too.
okay, well, let's say we'll just go to the 12 just to 6. Testing my mathematics here. 8, 2, so that's about 303.
336, and
Yeah.
then there's
So we're
two
still
12 by
good.
8s on each end.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish that,
Basically 528.
you know, with the current Lakeshore Resort, you know, everything is one story. So I think that when, you know, the footprint was given, I don't know if in people's minds, they were like, oh, it's just one story. You know, and these are 2 stories, so it basically doubles the area.
Would you want to put the visual of the exterior up for people to see?
Sure. Yeah.
That might be very helpful.
Yeah, this is the lake view.
That's the one closest to the lake?
This is the lake view, yep.
So how far off the road will that be approximately?
Off of the road, off of the neighbor, it's 42 feet. Off of the road is more than that.
Yeah, it's a good ways back.
Off the road, I think it's like.
Visually, it won't jump out at you as you go down.
No.
It's in line with the current
Yes.
buildings.
It's like
Yeah.
90 feet off the road.
Okay.
But it's not gonna be right there.
You'll notice it though when you go down there. I mean,
Well, yeah, it'll be the new building.
Yeah.
Because,
There's a lot of other new
so what
buildings
is
on
the
it too.
square footage
Yeah.
of this building? No,
Well,
the
each
total
unit.
square foot
Oh,
26.
total.
plus the deck.
I
Yes.
don't know what that is. You know what this architectural square footage is of the Lakeview building?
The Lakeview building is roughly 2,500 square feet.
Yeah, that's right, we have 2,600 on the.
And then the decks are another,
500. Maybe you added it up.
Well, the front deck was 528 on the one, let's see. Yeah,
What's my total now? That's great.
600. Just, there's some access ways and stuff that'll make it be about 600 square foot a deck. That's,
Per
and that's up, yeah, per floor, so there's 600 above and 600 right below.
Mhm.
But you're still even with that under the 7,000.
Mm-hmm. We're at 65. So I think the thought initially this evening was questioning whether this project needed to go back to the ZBA because just for the clarity, but I think, you know, the overall concept is there. I'm not sure that I would agree it has to go back to ZBA, and I think one of the determining factors in that is initially, we didn't have a lot of input either on this project, and tonight we have the property owners here with us that would be most impacted, and to hear them say they're 100% for this makes me consider that we probably don't have to have a public hearing on this project, correct?
that's the feel.
I mean, if we
Yeah.
can come to the agreement on you did go through all these things and say the fire district and the engineering report and all of those things were doable. You did not say that the report from Lene was doable.
I guess just for clarity, Andrew or Joe, maybe you know, what is the square footage of all of your current resort buildings that have the lodging in it?
I don't know that I know just the lodging, but the footprint is, I believe, 20,000, including all structures on that parcel or all buildings on that parcel. That would include the maintenance barn. But when we established the 7,000 number in our ZBA application, we never intended that number to include porches. When we looked and planned the project and prepared that application, although it doesn't say it in the application, when we created those numbers, we created them saying that that didn't have to include porches because we were talking about interior space and thinking about the walls, not porches. And so when we created the inventory of the existing buildings, we didn't include our overhangs and porches in that number. So I know from our planning side, we've been consistent is how we look at that 7,000 square foot number. It was never intended to include porches, and these buildings aren't bigger than we intended them to be.
I guess it's just, I think about that 50% expansion for the ZBA, you know, and if 50% was their existing buildings and the square footage of the existing buildings, and then it can't be, the ZBA said, you know, we can't be 50% greater. And there's many ways of calculating that, like number of units or space.
And I mean, the units are consistent, the 8, and that was when this ordinance was used historically at like Goshorn Lake when they expanded. That meeting was all about units and not about square footage, which is logical when you think about impact on the neighbors, how many rooms or bedrooms, whether the unit has a porch or doesn't have a porch, doesn't create more activity or more people, and have an impact.
I might add too that just in general in real estate, covered porches and screened-in porches are not included in the square footage. But I do understand why maybe the ZBA understood a footprint to include all structure attached to the building. But I think, you know, everything you've done is very tasteful. This is actually the front elevation of that building that faces the roadway, just so you know it faces the roadway. This is the front.
Actually, I think that's the front that
Oh, that's the
faces the
porch.
lake. That's the,
That is the.
that's how guests will enter from parking
Oh, it
behind.
is, okay.
This is the
I stand corrected.
front from the
Excuse me.
roadway.
Well, that's okay, front like facing the water.
Yes, now I
The
understand.
front of entry, yeah.
Yes.
But I think you've done a really nice job with it. So I think maybe just a decision needs to be made about the understanding of the square footage. I don't have a problem.
I don't have a problem with it.
And yeah, I guess, also the homes on our street are much larger than this structure, so it's not like it's out of character, for the neighborhood.
And I think it's very nice the way the 3 bungalows are tucked back in the woods. They really won't be that visible from anywhere unless somebody's out walking around.
No, it's just
Behind the
that
resort.
front one out by the road, and that's still
Yes.
90 feet off the road.
Mhm.
And that, I think, is conducive to other homes on that stretch.
Yeah, and while that building does contain 2 units, we designed it so it would look like a single family residence, to be more compatible with the other homes on the street. So I think, you know, if you were just driving by and not staying at our property, you would assume that that's one home, just like the neighbors, and not a 2-unit building.
Okay.
I just have a question about the parking. If we went back to the parking conversation, would you be receptive to us relocating a few parking spots into this area if they weren't additional?
Oh, to the front house?
Yeah, to here, to have more than the 2 spaces. Could we relocate 3 or 4 existing spaces back to this area?
I think we need to see a full current parking count with unit count and, you know, your whole development to know where you're at with parking today and where you are compared to the ordinance requirements.
Okay.
Because
So,
you're really talking about visitor parking. Because you have enough parking for just the units itself. So now you're just talking about additional parking for your visitors, which then I would wanna see that.
Okay.
Because now you're incorporating more than just this area. You're trying to bring some parking and allow some parking for your other portions of your resort. So I would have to see that.
What do you do with the scenario that you spoke about earlier, that the 2 sisters agree that we're gonna spend 2 weeks there and.
It's not mine. I don't see
But
that.
what I'm saying, so if you have somebody coming from Chicago and one from Detroit, they're you know,
Gotta have 2 spots.
they're gonna have 2 spots.
But our ordinance doesn't address each scenario possible. I could have a family of 5. It doesn't address that. We'd have to look at the ordinance and what does our ordinance allow?
And our ordinance speaks to bedrooms, but
I don't know how we can make,
We
it
can't
could be a
violate the
family of
ordinance.
10.
We can't violate the ordinance, but I think what we should do is what Lene suggested, that we round up, since it was portioned And that would be the number of spots they could have.
So 4 additional. Okay.
Or additional.
Okay.
Okay. Okay,
I'll make one suggestion
Yes.
related to that. So if we have the 4 visitor spaces here, I wonder if we could have some flexibility to make this a little wider. So this acts as more of a two-way because they have additional parking back here. This is kind of set up to be one way, but it would be convenient to have the visitors go back here.
So now you don't want to make it one way?
Well, we'd like the flexibility to have this be just 4 feet wider, so this could be two-way traffic here instead of one way.
Well, as long as they're
Then give up the other
using
one.
the side of the road for parking. So
No, it would just be for better access to there's an existing gravel parking area back here.
And the ZBA plan showed this as 16. So it would be making it, it'd be following the ZBA plan and Lene's feedback in the report to make that consistent with the
Then I
ZBA.
would say you get rid of that other one then. If
This
you
one
no
here?
longer, you get rid of it.
get rid of what?
Get rid of that
This-
space. Get
Would
rid
you
of
be
that.
willing to have this be just pedestrian?
Yes.
No, I think for the there'd be too many cars coming, if cars entered that way, that would be how we would still direct traffic
To come in this?
to come in that way. So all of our traffic isn't going around the other way.
I'm gonna have a problem. You're making that one two-way. Then there's no need for that other driveway. It is, because I would come in and I would leave the same way.
but they're saying they don't want that, they don't
Right,
want.
I understand that. I understand what they're saying, but you just extended this and now, instead of this all being one way, this is all one way. You were making this all one way. You want to make this wider and make this two, so why do I need that? This is going to be a
Because I don't want that many cars pulling past the pool. I want a sign that's gonna direct people entering to go this way. This would be used in 2 lanes in the scenario someone's parking here and then coming back here, so they don't have to loop around into the front. Because that area in front is between the buildings and the lake and it's right along the pool.
Yeah, this is-
That
there's a-
it is wide enough to accommodate the cars. It's just aesthetically not the best way for the cars to drive, to have them passing in front of those units.
It's an internal navigating
I'm
side of
thinking about
the complex, so. I think the main thing is the parking numbers.
And I'm sorry, is that gravel?
This is
No.
bituminous pavement in here. This is gravel back. All the new stuff is gravel.
Okay.
This is gravel
It's
back
gonna
here.
be 16, this is from the concept.
How wide is it now?
It
The one in
varies.
the back.
To the concept.
This back here,
Yes,
this is just kind of a parking area.
no, the drive to it, the one-way access right now, how
None of
wide
this,
is it? Not that one, but the one behind it,
here,
yes.
this doesn't exist.
Oh, it doesn't exist?
No,
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
this isn't here right now. This is undeveloped.
Oh, okay. It's undeveloped. Okay, that's good to know. Okay,
Yeah, right now everybody comes in this way and then back to the parking area.
oh, I see.
That area that's shown as gravel on the plans is actually a parking lot.
Correct, there's parking area back here.
Okay.
So that access drive is east. Is that the east?
Yes. And the reason you need to put the additional drive in off of Lake Shore is because of the
Fire.
the
Fire
length of the
access.
road.
If fire.
Dead end exceeds the
Right,
maximum length.
It wasn't there on the concept because really the concept didn't go to fire. And so it makes sense.
Mhm.
And of course, that's what you would expect. Are we able to vote on this evening without talking about that last road there? Or is that important to what you want to do right now?
The last road, I mean, I think
The road back to the gravel parking lot?
this,
Yeah,
I think that is really the smallest, point because it was on the ZBA plan as 16 feet.
okay,
So we're making this now consistent with the ZBA plan. And so just to explain its purpose, especially now with limiting the parking here, I can imagine someone is going to be directed to pull in this way and maybe not find a place to park and come here, or come here and want to go back, rather than sending them back around in front of these units where guests are sitting and at the pool, they're able to come back without pulling back into the front of the property. So it's really just a completely internal thing that is consistent with the ZBA plan.
Anything else?
I can make a motion.
Okay,
Okay. Move to support, approve the site plan for Lakeshore Resort at 2885 Lakeshore Drive. Consistent with the site plan standards in section 44692 with the following conditions. Okay, make sure I got these right. Buildings shall be designed and used for resort purposes and not short-term rental. Building renderings and floor plans with height dimensions shall be provided. Floor plans for all floors for each building shall be provided. Height and floor count shall meet the R3 district standards. There shall be no outdoor storage. Parking is per ordinance, section 4647, H8, which is for a motel, one space per sleeping room, plus 4 additional guest parking. Did I say that right?
yes.
Okay. Internal access shall be provided with width of driveways approved by the fire district. The east driveway can be no wider than 16 feet. A wetland delineation shall be provided and included on the site plan. The landscape plan must be according to our ordinance, and I don't have that section, sorry, which includes a appropriate privacy fence and green belt associated with your residence to the south. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Did I get the right direction? Okay. Tree buffer areas which are part of the required setbacks shall be preserved in the natural state as much as possible. No construction permits or ground disturbance shall be issued or occur until a permit from Eagle is provided to the township if such permit is required, which I believe we've determined. I don't know if that's been determined whether.
I think that you
Needs to-
mentioned there was already a letter from Eagle that said it's
Yeah,
not.
Okay.
I
Okay.
submitted that on Friday, I can. give you a
Okay,
copy.
that's right, as long as Linda has it.
It's a letter from our consultant.
It's a letter from the consultant.
Okay, the use of the structure shall at all times comply with local, county, state, and federal requirements. All fees shall be paid and conditions met prior to an issuance of building permit and certificate of occupancy. Any conditions of the township engineer shall be complied with prior to issuance of building permit, including items related to grading and drainage.
Did you include any condition from the fire department?
Did I not, did I forget that?
That was up at the top.
Okay.
Yes, number 5, I think.
So Denise,
Yes.
the question is, they afforded a letter from their consultant stating there's no wetlands. Is it possible to get a letter from Eagle? Or are you satisfied with their consultant?
Lene?
I mean, I think it would be good for us to have the assurance, since we are 500 feet away from the lake, and, you know, close to the high risk erosion boundaries. I just want some kind of verification.
From Eagle.
Yeah, that we
Can you
don't.
guys- Can you guys?
I'm not sure that that's possible. I don't think Eagle would create a letter without going through a delineation, a full delineation.
Yeah, they typically don't just issue advisory opinions that they don't have jurisdiction. I mean, they only want to take jurisdiction if there's an issue. If it's not in a critical dune area, they're not going to issue an opinion that says it's not necessary. So.
But they
typically-
would give you a letter saying that a permit is not required from Eagle.
Hi, Bill Sickle, 42 East Lakewood Boulevard. I'm the attorney for the applicant. So typically they don't do that. What we've done in the past with other municipalities is we've provided you with a letter from our consultant that says there are no wetlands. They've reviewed the site, they've determined there are no wetlands, there's no need for delineation, or it's not in a critical dune area. You then have that in your file. If anything would ever happen later that somebody said, wait a minute, they don't have proper approval at that point, right? So I mean, we've made a representation, we've provided an expert opinion for that isn't necessary, that there's not a condition, but they're the ones who are at risk if it would ever turn out that there are wetlands and that the consultant was wrong. At that point, they're in violation of your approval. So that's kind of the recourse for it. But typically, because I mean, they're too busy to processing regular applications, to just issue advisory opinions that there's not anything necessary. So I've never had to do that with any applicant before. So, but if your file's at least papered and properly documented by a professional engineer, my client's the one who's on the hook for that if there is a problem. So.
Okay, so.
But our township engineer mentioned Eagle would be required for work within high-risk erosion areas, critical dune boundaries. So it's a little more than wetlands, lakes and streams or wetlands.
We can provide you with a letter that says that this is not in a critical dune area from the consultant if you'd like. That would be something that.
It's a whole list of
the things on
there's a
this.
list of all the parcels that are and are not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so do I need to change that statement?
So as to number 10, it would be a letter from a licensed engineer indicating that an Eagle permit is not required for whatever as far as wetlands, dune production.
High risk erosion.
lakes, streams,
All
and
right, so
wetlands.
Jennifer, you got that?
I got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
And it's actually number 7 on the engineer's report, so, okay.
All
All
right,
right.
so that would be associated with my number, is it number 10?
Is number 10.
Okay. I don't know if I was exactly that number, but okay. So that, we'll make a correction to that, okay.
Okay.
Okay, I think I got it all. I need a support.
I'll support.
Okay. I will do a roll call vote. Is there any other discussion at this point? Okay. Brown. Yes. Webster.
Yes.
Israel. Yes. And Ken.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Motion passed.
Thank you so
Yay.
much.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
your
Mike.
investment in this
Thank you for
project.
your patience.
And thank you to your neighbors to the west for coming in and sitting through this. We really do appreciate it.
It's been interesting, and it's a good combination. You guys are protecting us, although it's not needed in this case, but in some cases, I'm sure it is. So it's a good system.
Yeah. Welcome to stay, or you're welcome to leave. But we do really appreciate you being here and representing your project, and
You're welcome.
I can't thank you enough for that, so.
I look forward to seeing your project.
Thank you.
I walk down that road
Absolutely.
often.
So they can hear us and they can see the screen share, but they cannot see.
I can't go anywhere without it. I know.
Do we need
Yep,
a
yep.
5 minute to get some water, use the restroom, whatever, and then,
Press on. No.
Someone's keys are here.
And,
With your big feet.
I see that. You look like you're ready for dancing. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Well,
I mean, you know.
Yeah, I have it all written out.
We are.
You know, it's written in here.
We know where to find you.
Only been there 70 years.
I think it's gonna be fine. I know you don't have to listen to
Great plan. That's good.
Uh-huh.
and.
Yeah.
I could have given you the whole application, I guess.
can read it.
Back presenting. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I missed your meeting 2 months ago.
Yeah. I'm like,
I
wait a
don't know
minute.
where I was. Oh, I was in Colorado.
You're in Colorado, I think. That would not be better than being here.
Yeah, snow, sleeping, did you hear that? 10 inches.
Really?
Saturday.
What's that?
The snow in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, my sister sent pictures of my nieces sledding.
My granddaughter called. She said, I'd watch this dog for the weekend, but I'd want to walk in the snow.
Of course, usually there it gets to be about 60 or 70 during the afternoon, same day, so.
Yeah, it was 70 the next day.
Picked the wrong weekend to go to Gaylord.
Oh, you did
yeah.
go there?
Yeah, I've got a place in Mishaway just south of there, so I had my whole family calling me, are you okay?
Yeah, I
And
bet.
I had power, I had internet, it's fine, we were doing the Zoo to Mac the next day. And I'm like, actually, I could have used the tornado to help push me toward.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. Okay, before we resume right back, Renee, this letter from Roy that Roy what do I do with this exactly?
I've
Enter it?
got a copy, we can just keep it in the record for the meeting.
Okay. Okay, so we are back to work. All right. Back to the future here. And next on the agenda, thank you for being so patient. For those of you who stayed in the audience, it's our new business. It's the review of the Natural River Overlay fact sheet. And we're going to hear a request from Jane Dickey, who is a member of the Rural Character Committee, about this.
And I should clarify that this fact sheet was not prepared by the township. This fact sheet was prepared by a community constituent, so.
Oh, really?
Correct, yes, this was
Okay.
not my work.
Okay. So it was, all right, we can ask that question later, but. Okey doke. Jane.
Thank
What's
you.
your
Hi,
point?
my name's Jane Dickey and I live at 6108 Old Allegan Road. We have 20 acres of land, which incidentally backs up to the wetlands of the Kalamazoo River, which is in the river overlay, the natural river overlay, and is protected. If we were going to build a house on the back part of that property, we would be required to make sure that we left enough trees to be able to see over everything, but so that it would maintain that view from the water back looking at the bluff, and it would save it as a natural area. So I speak of something I think I know a little bit about from a personal point of view. I also speak to you as a member, as Becky said, of the Rural Character and Conservation Committee, and I also a member of the Parks Commission, the Saugatuck Township Parks Commission. We on the Parks Commission are working to expand and improve our parks and expand the public access to our natural areas. The value of conservation and preservation that the Rural Character Committee is working on is so critical to our water quality, our scenic views, wetlands, habitats, and the quality of all of our lives here. As you make your decisions are based on a number of things. One is certainly what the community wants, but how do we know what the community wants? I think the master plan has been really helpful in that it was a great survey of folks. Citizens showing up. Just saw the West, for example, who shows up to say something about something? Citizens care about certain things, and you can tell. And community involvement. Just last weekend, Rotary high school students, teachers, residents of the township, the Riverwood group planted over 900 plus trees at Riverview Park. Now these trees are twigs about this high, and they need protection from the mower, from the person who's mowing. And those of us who are a little older walked around and said, won't it be great in 30 to 40 years when these high school students come back and say, we planted those trees. But you know what? Having an opportunity to preserve and conserve what is here now, trees that are here now in my lifetime, is a very worthwhile cause. Another thing that's important, of course, and you've been great at this, is working on good ordinances and best practices. Having good, strong planning commission, which having lived here 40 years, we haven't always, and we do now. I'm so grateful for that. That you set up those citizen advisory committees, which I represent now as I speak to you. Having competent and committed staff in the township. And I feel strongly we have that now. And Lene, I am so grateful that you are here, because I think having a competent zoning administrator is key to all of this. A third component of making your decision is complex thinking. By that, I mean recognizing that things are interconnected. So for example, the fact that you set up a Rural Character Committee and an Economic Development Committee, each of those committees realize we are working in tandem and we're working together, and we need to be connected as we work on these things. Another thing that's interconnected is the up river part of the Kalamazoo River and what flows down through Saugatuck and Douglas and through our township. The Natural River Overlay that was put in place highlighted that we could extend that it could be extended in the future. And I think it needs to be extended to protect some of what is already there. And the Rural Character Committee voted unanimously to encourage the Planning Commission to advise Lene to move ahead on this project on the Natural River Overlay now, rather than to wait through the whole process, which is, I think, going to be great, to set up the process that you're looking at to hire consultants to help us look at all of the ordinances and then come forward with a unified set of ordinances. I think that's going to be great. That's going to take eight months to a year. I think that there are things happening in the township. There's land beyond the construction that Mr. Voscraft is speaking of. There are a number of places that which could very much be affected not having the overlay. I think the overlay needs to be there, and the advisory committee believes that it needs to be there as well. So with all this in mind, I'm here to represent the advisory committee which you appointed, that we really would like to see movement forward on that overlay, because we think it's consistent with everything that we've seen so far, the master plan, the committee's own deliberations, the desire to conserve the rural character of the natural and river, and conserve the natural areas in our community. So I turn it over to you to make your wise deliberations and decisions. And any questions you have, I'm happy to answer as well. And actually Ken can help you out on such things as well. Oh, should I stand here?
Sure.
Okay.
If we have questions. So Denise, do you have any questions?
Well, I probably have not so much questions as concerns. And I certainly am supportive of protecting the environment and our cultural areas and so forth. However, I wonder if this is a little premature, and I agree that, you know, when you rewrite an ordinance, it does take time, absolutely. There's also some things that have come forward that was presented also that is a little concerning to me in regards to whether in fact we need to bring our township lawyer in sooner than later in regards to how we should proceed for this particular ordinance. So those are my concerns. In regards to, as we are extending that, I'm not saying I'm for or against, I just have some concerns. The timing of all this, the township lawyership needs to be very much involved.
If and when, right, yeah. Jackie?
It currently goes up to I-196, is that correct?
That's correct. It goes within the township from 60th Street, which is the end of the town, the furthest east boundary of the township, and then it comes west all the way to the highway.
No, no.
Does it?
No, it's down here. It's this little small dotted line. That's why it's here.
Oh, okay.
It's over here.
And they want to extend it all the way up to the
Well,
mountain.
they want to bring it up
Yes,
here.
they want to bring it way up there.
They want to include this.
Do you have
That's not part of it.
So you're saying this is not,
No.
this portion is not?
No, it's this small dotted line right here.
Okay.
See, so it's
Mhm.
over here.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
then around here. So it's
Okay.
over here. It's
Okay.
not over here. So I don't know that, are you in this? Are you
Yeah,
over here?
I'm over here.
You're
I'm
over here.
and I'm in it.
Okay, you're in that.
I know I'm in it.
But you're talking about extending it up to here.
Right.
Does that make sense?
So if you read the ordinance, it deals with, it doesn't stop development, but it deals with how development occurs and what large buffers you need, and you can't clear cut. You have to you can filter so that the ordinance itself, I think, just has some really good practices as it's written. Part of this,
I really don't.
one other thing, as we look at this, there are
let's see, where is? Okay, I was just looking for,
Actually, there's one
some of
thing-
these areas are protected by other things like the, River Bluff Park, for example, is all up here. And so there are, even though the overlay doesn't come all the way there, there's already conservation of chunks of that along the way. Wade's Park and the
Bayou.
yeah, the West Michigan Natural.
So Becky, is this the dotted line you're talking about?
I'm sorry, it's.
So I've got it on the screen now.
See the it's right here. It
Natural
says
river
natural river boundary and it's the tiny blue
It's the tiny
dots.
piece.
So see, it's over here
Yeah.
It's on both sides, but there.
and it's just like in this area.
So
And
what,
that's where it is now and
so
that's,
we would pick up this area.
no,
No.
no. It
It's,
would not.
it's
We're not
wide.
even asking to do that.
It just goes right along. It's 50, how many feet it says on the ordinance, how many feet in it goes like that.
It's there, but this is way out there. That's the channel.
And so they want to
This is where
extend
I
on
wanna
that.
bring it to.
Right now. And that is already under litigation at this point.
So I guess my.
I think this is premature, actually. I certainly respect all this, but there's a lot of things I would.
I do too.
Well, here's the thing, I would be tempted to approve this, but, and I take issue with the letter we got from,
Okay, and we can still ask you questions, Jane.
Oh, yeah, I can answer from here, I'll come back.
from North Shore's attorney.
The release.
He believes, because if we are including all that area of the river from where it ends, up to the bridge, in which, well,
Not. We're not including all that area.
So I guess my thought would be to refer this issue to the township attorney. And would this put us in violation of the consent order previously entered?
Correct. I think we
I
need
think
to
it would.
bring a lawyer into this and then if, and to look at the entire process. And then I'm a little leery about changing this, but I'm assuming it's section 4591 is what they want to do. And whether it's the entire ordinance, it's like, okay, we're already in the
Gonna do
process
that.
of
Updating.
updating our ordinance. I would say we need to step back.
So Jane, is there a reason that the whole of the river,
The river, the extension is requested from where it ends now all the way up to the river, so.
so what you're
It would go all
asking
the
is,
way
so
from
it would not be just
area where it ends right
isolating
there.
it on the,
Oh, no,
North
not at
Shore
all.
property.
No, not at all.
you're
There's a lot.
dragging me
All the
into this
way.
too, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
exactly. All the way along here, so it continues all the way through this wetland area, and there are, I would say, there are people that are developing stuff, and I have a neighbor who actually in violation of this coverage, because we didn't have adequate enforcement, clear cut the whole thing right down to the wetlands. And it was a mess, and it's still a mess 30 years later. So having the protection, of course, along with the enforcement, I think is going to be key to doing this. But in any event, it's a lot of different properties, and it's not taking away property rights for development or anything like that. It's just saying, be back a ways, leave the natural area, that it looks the way it looks. So, and there are other areas along here who potentially will be developed and might happen soon. And if we could have the natural overlay, I think it would be very helpful. So that was the reasoning of
The point of my question was, it's not just picking on North Shore, it's picking on all of the township property on this river throughout the course of it.
I guess I did want to share the map. I pulled this up from the DNR website. If you search natural rivers, there's a natural river plan that is referenced in this work from a citizen. and then the map. And the map, the dark blue, follows the area that the state has designated as the wild and scenic river. And that is the same boundary as our overlay.
Okay.
Everything west of that
Mhm.
is not designated by the state as the wild and scenic natural river. So our overlay pairs with that state designation as it
Okay.
is today.
I would
just thought
hesitate
that
to
would-
go farther than that.
At this
time, absolutely. And I do have a question, a couple questions, though, Jane. If you could explain to me, what is the urgency of saying that we should be doing this and cover the channel area? I don't quite understand that. It doesn't feel right to me.
There are several properties that potentially could come on the market that are along that area that would go right down to the river. That could be, it could lead to much better conservation development of those properties if this were in place, if this National River overlay were in place. I think that's really the main urgency, to try to make sure that that any development that happens within the next year or two, or sales that occur within the next year or two, would comply with maintaining the rural character.
Okay. I agree with Denise. I think that I'm not sure why we're extending this, but I don't think it's the right thing to do at this time. I also want to say that preserving that mouth of the river is very important. And I know we had a pretty rough storm here a while back, like 6-8 months ago. And a lot of trees were down, a lot of trees were in the river. And even the river was making some inroads in different areas. And I know, when a couple of our citizens went and hauled those trees out of the river at their expense and took them away, it cleaned up our riverbed. And so I think, there's people very committed to that mouth of the river. And I'm grateful to that. Mr. Boscraft was one of those people who pulled all those trees out of that area and never, said anything. But I want to say thank you for doing that. That's, I don't know when that was. Scott, when was that, a year ago?
About this time next year.
Yeah.
Thank you for you, I'd pull a tree out of the river.
For me? Thank you. I think I would recommend to this commission that because we already have Eagle involved in the mouth of the river area and looking at that we stay away from that at this time. And I do think that it's very important, and I really appreciate the work that the Rural Character Commission does. But it's the advisory committee. All the advisory committees have been asked to prioritize, of which we did. And there was so many important things that came out of all 3 committees that we decided that we were gonna hire someone to do a revamping of all the ordinances with Lene. And we know it's gonna be an 8 to 12 month project, but it's so inclusive of this in all those areas. And it's a whole ordinance revamping. And I think some of that will point to where do we really need to address it. I appreciate Lene bringing back to us what the state of Michigan has identified as the overlay area at this
I
time.
was mistaken on that. I thought it did go all the way to this end. But we may come back and recommend you at least bring it up to the bridge because those are also areas of development, and I think so.
And I think it's perfect. I mean, we're really moving ahead. I mean, if we want to look at that, but I think then someone in your committee will have to do some real in-depth research if you're really thinking of taking it up to the bridge. And
I'm not talking mouse, I'm talking up to the bridge.
Up to the bridge. I'm
Yes,
hearing
we're talking about that too. Okay.
Yeah, I still think they're gonna have to do a lot of in-depth research in terms of doing that. But, in work with the state,
Well, I'm just, I
Yeah.
mean, if our overlay is based on the state's map of the wild and scenic river, you know, what are the characteristics of wild and scenic natural rivers that cause them to stop in that location? And can that be extended, you know, at the state level so that if there was an overlay to be changed, I think you would want to have the basis, you know, the base characteristic or the base designation at the state level to mirror ours. We also do have a, just so you know, we do have a 75-foot setback from the Kalamazoo River in most of our residential districts. And then in the R2 district, that orange district, we have a 25-foot buffer along the river's edge. That's kind of those that do not disturb area. So there are some protections out
there
for
are protections
areas,
now.
yeah, that are outside the overlay. It's not as intense.
Are there any tree stipulations about tree and clear cutting and all of that?
It
in
says
that?
a strip 25 feet in width
Just
bordering
25 feet.
the water's edge of the applicable body of water shall be maintained in its natural state or shall be planted and maintained in grass, trees, shrubs, or other plants. So it's not as, you know, there maybe in our ordinance work that can be strengthened or, you know, use some of the same language from the natural river about clear cutting and the filtered view and stuff.
So, we have a representative of Saugatuck, here, is it your intention to bring this to the city?
Yes.
When do you think approximately that's going to happen?
Probably within the next 60 days. I'm really not certain, but
It hasn't been brought to the city yet?
no, I've not taken, I mean, no.
I thought the city had discussed this, but I, you know, I'm probably not right, so.
So you probably are.
If they
right?
have, I'm not aware of it.
So what I would suggest, what I'm hearing is that there's not support for it tonight, but I would like to make a motion to at least have this issue referred to the township attorney as to the issue raised by the May 23rd letter from Mr. Gabriel C.
We don't need a motion, do we? Do we just recommend
If
that
he made a motion, if someone wants to second it, they can. If they don't, it dies.
So I'm just making a motion that I would like to know if we're allowed to proceed in this way, or does prior litigation preclude us? Now, if you don't want to support it, that's fine, but I would at least like to have that question answered, because I disagree with his notion that we are picking on him if we're going to pick up all the other property along the way. And there went that.
Do I hear a second?
I would second that. I mean, it's gonna cost some money to look into that, but
In my opinion is that I would not vote for that because I don't think it's necessary at this time. I think we're. Okay, but
We have a motion, so
we have a
second.
motion, we have a second. So I will call the roll. Butler,
Yes.
Ground. Webster,
No.
Israel's no. So what do we do when it's a tie?
Motion fails.
Motion fails.
Now, what I would though, Ken, Commissioner, is I recommend that we take this to our attorney
I do too.
and let them
When the
look at
time
this.
comes.
Well, whether it's now, I don't know, I'll leave that up to Lene to
The
decide
manager.
when is the
That's
appropriate
up to
time
our
to go
manager, yeah.
forward. And that in a review of our ordinance, when there's a public hearing or public, just open house or whatever in regards to the ordinance, that
The discussion.
the people come forward and talk about that ordinance and what is it that we really want to do and whether in fact we go to the state about the wild scenic river, I think there's a lot of things that are just kind of
But I think you're talking
Connected.
about procedure. How do we proceed with the ordinance and
So I would recommend, we go to the lawyer and have them look at those two pieces of,
I've already been slammed twice tonight.
hey,
He's our
I
new
just-
member.
you're our new member? It's gotta be free time.
Stack, the new kid.
No, we can disagree.
We do disagree.
That's what we're supposed to do.
That's what we do. But are you recommending we go to our attorney now with this? 'Cause we
I'll
don't
leave that
have-
up to Lene.
Manager,
Yes.
maybe.
I'm gonna
One
leave
is-
that up to Daniel too, because,
Yes. What is appropriate? I don't
we
know what
don't
is
have the
appropriate,
information.
but
It's really not appropriate for planning to be doing that right now. So,
I'll just leave it up to Lene and Daniel, when is the appropriate
Yeah,
time for that
As a
discussion.
contract planner, I tend not to run the meter of our attorney, but I would
Right.
seek that. I'll inform our manager of the discussion and certainly watch the video and review the minutes and decide.
okay.
Thank you.
I can bug him tomorrow.
Yes, yes, you
Okay.
can. You might even
Give him a day. Okay, so, thank you, Jane, for that. Did you prepare this sheet?
No, I didn't prepare the sheet, no, but a lot of it is, I mean, it's helpful, it's a helpful
Who did
sheet.
prepare this? Do you know?
I don't, this is, but I, reading through it, I found a lot of it helpful, I even discovered my name in there, which was somebody else looking at the Park Commission. But coming up on your agenda is also, for old business, is a report from the Rural Character and Conservation Committee, and normally, that would be John, who's not here, right, or John, you do it? Is there some, oh, do you do that, Ken? Who reports, or who reports?
That's a standing item on our agenda, the
Right.
committee reports. I'm not sure we.
Who reports?
I get a report from John, I have his report. Do you all have his report?
No, that's his township report. She's talking about the rural character.
I have that.
Yeah, I can tell you what's going on in the Rural Character and Conservation Committee, because I'm a note taker and I have my notes here from the last meeting, which was on May 13th.
Okay,
And I
we'll
just
move
wanna
on
give-
the agenda onto old business then and committee reports, and we'll allow you to go first.
Thank you. I haven't eaten since noon.
Okay, so just real quickly, we had Barry Lonick, president of Tremore Ecology and Land Services, make a presentation on how to do conservations, easement conservations, and especially he's done a lot of work in Washington County and particularly working with agricultural easements so that lands can be preserved, so that you can actually have the owner get the money out of it now who may need it, but still be able to keep farming it and even pass it on to younger children, or sell it as a farm. You can save it as an easement in perpetuity. So if you want to keep some of our farmlands, if you want to preserve and conserve some of our wooded areas, these can be put in easements by the private owner. I'm going to be working on that along that river to see if this township can have another more beautiful park, a lateral park. So I'm just telling you that this fellow presented this, and it's going to probably have some implications coming up for what's happening in the township and for planning commission and for creating these easements. That was probably the biggest part of the meeting. We also,
And that's available to listen to, I believe. I'm sorry to interrupt.
oh,
you,
yes, yes.
But I do think it's
Daniel.
available to listen to, and I think that it's really interesting. I wasn't at the meeting, but I heard part of it.
It's really phenomenal.
Land conservancy.
And he emphasized the importance of good planning, zoning, a good master plan, and then he also including such things as natural river overlays to assist in conservation. So anyway, he's right on target with some of the kinds of things that we're looking at. Let's see, ordinance. We're working on doing a development visualization project, which you'll be very interested in too, if we move ahead with it. And this is using a geographic information system, which taking data that's already available in the county, we can watch the growth in our township. We could get a look at 1990s, 2000, 2010, 2020, and it'll just show us visually where the development is happening and help us think ahead to where is it going to be going and what do we need to be doing in the township as we think of things, the direction of where development is going. Just with, you don't need the Parks Commissioner. Okay, I think those were the major things. Of course, we passed unanimously what you just decided to wait on. But anyway, that's the report.
Well, we're not just waiting on it, it's just part of the overall picture, I think.
Right, I think it
not a
was
single item
getting
thing.
legal, the desire to have some
Direction.
legal direction.
Okay, thank you, Jane. The economic development, did you get John's report?
Yep.
Everyone get it? Okay.
She emailed it a couple weeks.
Their meeting April 19, Gary Rubble presented UNESCO Global Nutrition Program, which is manufactured right here in Saugatuck Township. It's a really neat process. Gary came in, were you there?
No.
Okay, presented an overview of a new food processing technology being used to convert otherwise discarded produce into a dry nutrition powder for distribution to Indigenous American communities. I asked why he didn't do it for rural communities in Allegan County too, but right now it's just Indigenous American communities. These local farms are actively involved in supporting this program. I think it's kind of interesting. I'd like to see it. It's a process of drying food and then pulverizing it and then using it as an additive. He also says in his report that he reviewed the board's decision to address the need for ordinance updating with his team as a holistic process that would require consulting assistance. So we need to tell people about the consulting project that we're agreeing or going into, and everyone was very happy to have a stronger foundation for the township's development. He also he discussed the opportunity for the township to take advantage of MEDC's resources to support and improve its development planning. That's a process online, and he has Sarah Renero from MEDC joining in May for a presentation, but she had to cancel and she didn't come. And his May meeting, he didn't have a quorum, so we just talked. And it was just he and one other member. He asked the committee to review the website on MEDC and make comments, and then a Michigan map of redevelopment ready communities was distributed to by John. And then he talked about a downtown development authority, and the general consensus of his discussion there was it's probably not applicable to us here in this area. So there was some discussion about a DDA, and actually Laketown has a DDA, I believe. Is that correct? Which, you know, people think is kind of odd, but there is, you know, it's all done for financing options for different things. So I don't think that went anywhere. And then he wanted to start a discussion on C1, C2, C3 uses, but that'll come out of our ordinance thing. So that was economic development. And then the next meeting really didn't happen. But that's John's report. Attainable housing.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to
We're just,
report.
we've done our work, and we're just waiting for the ordinance review. There's nothing more that we would be able to do.
Okay, great. It'll be interesting to talk about how we're gonna do that, but I think the first step is figuring out who is going to do that. So I think I have to slow down a little and be excited about who. The township board is next, board update.
And John sent that out to everybody in
You all
advance,
have
so I
that?
think, yeah,
So I'm not
just
gonna
for file.
review that. And then staff update, Lene.
So you had that copy of that annual report, I think it's under your gavel.
Okay, yeah.
Right, but I'll move on to the RFP draft. So we issued the request for qualifications. It was due today. We received one submittal.
We published it in a newspaper of general circulation. It was on the township website. We also sent it to another zoning firm in the Grand Rapids region. So we do have one response. I've worked with David Jarazek for quite a while, actually. He worked, when I was at Williams and Works, he worked for us. I had hired him and then he left and started his own company. But he's very well regarded for zoning work. He's a person that loves zoning. You know, we just, I think he does love it more than I do. He loves making ordinances. He just really thrives when it comes to zoning. So he set out an approach for us to consider. We have a sealed fee or bid from him on file here at the township. We worked in our request for qualifications to kind of lay out a process that involved the committees. I think having one, early checkpoint with the committees, as well as a later checkpoint with them. We provide him the priority list that the committees developed. And then, I think certainly from my experience, I would recommend Dave. But I encourage you all to review this as well as the township board. They're the ones who are going to be making the recommendation, but we only have one.
So we all have this, but we are not asked to make a recommendation about it, but it's kind of an FYI. It'll go to the township board.
And planning firms are very, very busy. I mean, I'm surprised that we didn't hear from others, but.
Do you expect to, or?
No, it was due today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. When I talked to Williams and Works, they asked who else that I've heard from, and I said Dave, and Andy Moore from Williams and Works said if Dave's going after it, we know he has a really good, reputation, and we're really busy, so.
And the passion.
Yeah, Dave is great. Dave is also the consulting planner with the city of Saugatuck. I should mention that. So they've hired him for some sort of special consulting. I don't think he does he doesn't do office hours or anything, but I know he's familiar with the area. And then in terms of the annual report, this is already a little bit out of date, I guess, but I had forgotten that I did it. But you can see that we've been busy. We've had 4 special uses, 5 site plans, rezoning, private road, some text amendments, and long-range planning activities that we did last year. I expect this year to continue to be busy.
Where was the private road? Did we see that?
No, private roads, only, they can come to the planning commission at the discretion of the zoning administrator, or if they're touching more than 4 properties.
Okay.
So that was internal, that private road is still not fully approved yet, but it's Gaslight Lane, the extension of Gaslight Lane. So that's what I have for you for the annual report. It's required because we run utilities, and I'll share that with the township board as well.
Jen, you have one.
Sure, correction.
Just action 2021.
Oh, thanks, Jen.
Yeah. I saw that too, and
Those are good, my good readers. I really appreciate it. And then I'm gonna be out of town for 2 weeks, June 17th until the 4th. And we will not be having a June meeting. Thank you all for responding to the suggested meeting change, but we did not receive any applications. We still have Dollar General, which has not come back yet with a complete site plan. So that is still not, that's why we didn't have it today. But we have deadlines and they didn't meet the June deadline.
And any more on the gravel pit or top grade?
Oh, top grade.
That's still hanging out there?
Top grade did submit, thank you for asking. They did submit, they were gonna be on this agenda, but their plan is too conceptual. So we've asked for more detail. They have done a modification that in concept, it responds to the comments and the concerns of the planning commission and the public. But we want to see more detail on that.
I would think we would be more than the concept.
Yeah, the concept.
We already know the
Okay,
concept.
We get the concept,
And
but we
our
really
concepts
want
are
to see
different.
more detail.
Yeah.
So they were given a list of detailed items that we're looking for, and then they know what our submittal deadline is, and so we're waiting.
Did you give them a deadline that?
We have a submittal deadline, so they,
have a submittal deadline.
I mean,
but
their
not a-
deadline is if we don't,
not a
yeah,
finished product deadline.
I think that we need to, yeah, we didn't say when we postponed it, we didn't say you have 6 months, they don't have that, but they're in a situation where we could start enforcing their special land use, which.
I would say we've got to be getting really close.
There is some
I think
good
we've given
news
them
on
enough
that
time.
project because they did get permission to get water
Yeah.
from the ravines,
That's right.
which is really good, for the ravines and the project, so they're not gonna dig deeper. And then we'll be able to loop the ravines, which makes the fire chief very happy.
To come back with that, Lenny, can we bring that onto agenda in July and make them more specific that it's been, they were gonna come back in January, and here we are 7 months later.
I would almost say, yeah, it would just say, you have to have something by the July meeting, or we may be forced to plunge into enforcement.
We'll build houses there.
So, yeah, I'm happy to email them after this meeting.
Yes, and I
let them
agree, then
know
it should
that
come onto
we're-
our agenda, it's like, well, if they didn't do anything, then what do we do?
It's
That
planting
we-
season right now.
Yes, I mean, I guess I agree, and I do want you to know that they had a meeting with myself and the township manager. There has been email communication, they did make this submittal, albeit not as detailed as we would have liked. So it's not that they're not communicating with us, so they are working, but I will let them know that we expect everything in for the July deadline.
Would be fireworks.
And does that work out? Well, you'll be back July 4?
Yeah.
Okay, good, okay. So no meeting in June. I've had a couple board members that they aren't here, but ask if we could just meet and talk about something else. And I said, like, what? And they said, well, I don't know. And I said, no, I don't think we'll meet and talk about, I don't know. So we won't be meeting in June. Unless you guys feel there's a need, but.
You would have to create an agenda, right, because you still have to.
Well, we've already been told that Lene won't be here.
Right, but,
You can meet without me.
Well,
but you would still have
that
to
would be-
have an agenda and Open Meetings Act and,
Yeah, you have to do that.
yeah.
Yeah, we have no need to meet in June.
No.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, with that, anything else? From anyone else?
I just hope the board has admired the new bench that hopefully in June, we're going to be adopting we have a fee set for benches at $1,500, so you'll have the opportunity to have the North Shore bench somewhere in one of our parks. I know you guys are dying to do that.
So you'll be able to put whoever donated the bench?
Yes,
you'll
and
put
you
their
have,
name
it
on
has to be tasteful.
Okay,
And we probably aren't gonna be real high on political benches, but
no,
it's going to
memorial
be
benches?
$1,500 a bench plus whatever the lettering costs. It comes from a company located near Lansing, and those are made out of recycled milk containers. So it's all recycled, made in Michigan, will last forever. I think we checked every box for that one, so.
and you were kind of the person spearheading this, I understand.
Yeah, I do kind of jump in with both feet.
Anything else with parks? How is the track thing
We,
going?
the engineer met this last week and toured the area north of the dog park. Matt Lewandowski.
That's
From Pre-Newhoff. He's hopefully going to have a conceptual plan to us this week for our meeting next week. And the high school cross-country coach met with him and is really excited about developing that and then how that can be integrated with a total trail plan. So that's proceeding ahead, and
That's exciting.
so far we haven't screwed anything up, so, you know, knock wood.
All right, well, in conclusion, I would like to just thank all of you, especially for being here, and for all you do. And, I move for a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Moved by Butler, supported by
Yes,
Foster. All in favor?
I'm happy to be, I'm happy to be the second because I'm a W, followed by with a P.
That's right, thank you.
All right.
Okay, good job.